Hello everyone, I'm Sneha Jha, editor of ETCIO, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to today's virtual panel discussion, a program hosted by ETCIO in association with Kyndryl, an IT infrastructure services provider that designs, builds, manages, and develops large-scale information systems. The topic for today's discussion is cyber resilience, going beyond cybersecurity and exploring the business continuity due to growing security exposures. Today we have with us industry practitioners who've been there, done that, and are here to help. In this session, you will hear from some of these industry experts on the need for cyber resilience and the ways of building it within your organization. They will also deliberate upon the need and ability to handle large-scale enterprise data protection, stop automated and human-driven errors, while optimizing the digital experience for customers and ensure business is always on. But before we get underway, let me set a bit of context. Today, organizations are taking huge strides towards tech-acceleration through digital connectivity. But the fact remains that the more digital you become, the more exposed you are. The cloud is making your borders more porous. Online services, apps, and APIs are drawing out your defenses and expanding the territory you need to defend. And a hybrid workforce is allowing guerrillas within your walls. The pandemic has not only accelerated the shift to digital, but also highlighted a rush of cybercriminal sophistication and collaboration. It has offered them new opportunities to probe for weaknesses they can monetize and new ways to disguise their activity. Online criminals have reacted fast, adapting their approach to hunt out remote working security gaps and prey on the vulnerable. Moreover, the will and aggressiveness of well-organized cybercriminals has elevated to a point where incident responses are now met with counterattacks designed to both punish and extract money from the victims via ransomware and other criminal activities to extract that final pound of flesh from the victim. It signals a new era of adversary sophistication. This is where cyber resilience becomes an organizational imperative, and we will explore this in great details during our discussion today. On that note, I'm pleased to welcome Harish Soni, Resiliency and Security Practice Leader at Kyndryl India, to share a market perspective on cyber resilience with us. Harish, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Sneha. You said so much about the whole ransomware attacks that I would have very few points to add. But again, thank you for setting up the context, right? And again, thank you, leaders and visionaries, right? I think for being here with us, with me and Ripu, and giving your time, right, on this key topic, cyber resiliency, which basically looks at the whole business continuity, right? That is the anticipate and recover part under the security platform where we usually work towards the detect and respond, right? And now, as Sneha was adding, right, to the number of attacks, its surface, the type of it, right, which is like 0 day, the ransomware, data breach, all of those, it's just increasing every day, right? And it is not just a typical, the way the number of incidents have increased, with the dollar value which the attackers see to it. There's also a lot of to it, the political, brand, and personal situation, which is adding to all this type of attacks and how they are being added. Now, just to add to it, right, like on the some surveys, right, just to look at the number of incidents, how they have increased. Like, so I was looking at the IDC survey from 2021, right? The number of ransomware incidents have increased almost 83% versus, in India, versus if you look at just Asia Pacific, it's at 21%, right? So I mean, India is, as we say, right, that in Hindi we call it as "Sone ki chidiya." So we are evolving very high, right? Right from our SMBs to the enterprise, we are all growing. It's a huge market for everyone. So that's how we see this. There's an increasing trend which has been seen in India as well on the cyber incidents, right? And that's how we also see with the CERT advisories. Now, as we look at this, right, the average cost of a data breach is very high. Like again, survey which I was looking at, the average cost of a data breach is close to 2.21 million, right, in India, versus a global average is close to 4.24 million, right? I mean, that talks about it, right? That post an incident, how you get exposed, and then the amount of challenge you have to get through it. And if you look at the traditional method where organizations see that, okay, they haven't performed a tabletop exercise, which usually they will do a drill to recover from a disaster, but to recover from a cyber incident disaster, there are no tabletop exercise done. The dependency on DR is completely gone because you cannot recover from a DR copy, which is in continuous sync with your production. Then, the last point, backups. Again, let's say if you're using those tape backups or even having a disk backups, the overall exercise has not been performed, or you don't have those set of modules which are required to recover from a cyber incident, right? Which we'll talk about later. Will be the key factors. Now, I will like Ripu to come and talk about some 4 5 challenges, and definitely Sneha, you can introduce Ripu. But Ripu, if you can talk about what are the challenges faced by the organizations, in today's world, and how this again cyber recovery comes into picture, right? So
Right.
Sneha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Harish, for your insightful conversation. Security and resiliency strategies really need to evolve to ensure business continuity for critical workloads. And with that, I'd like to invite Ripu Bajwa, Director and General Manager, Data Protection Solutions for Dell Technologies India, to walk us through the key challenges that organizations face from a security and resiliency point of view. Ripu?
Yes, thank you so much, Sneha and Harish, for having me. Really pleasure to be part of an esteemed delegation here. Few thoughts I like to start with, and of course we're going to have more discussions about how you are seeing in your particular industry and verticals. Um, Having been in the data protection business, our 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 interactions with customers, partners, ecosystems has been the fact that we have to brace this new phenomenon of living in the world where cyber incidents can happen to anyone. In fact, today as we speak, the estimates say that as compared to a year back, cyber incidents used to happen every 39 seconds. It has come down to 11 seconds. So with that kind of a rapid phase in which we are seeing incidents and breaches happening, uh, we always need to now look at how do we live in this world where if I am taken down, if some of my applications are not available, then what is my resiliency posture? How do I really go to business and say, look, I will be up and running in this much time for these many applications? Um, as Harish pointed out, the impact is very, very significant. Every industry, um, it can go into millions of dollars. It can go beyond that. It can be irreparable damage. You could be out of business. And the fact that today you are doing a lot in terms of security, data security, personal data security, people security, this much you need to do more to make sure that the cyber threat actors don't get the better of you. And over a period of time, there have been many solutions that have come out which really help you detect, respond to them, give you the intelligence in time so that you are able to react and respond in a proper way. Um, the current way in which people have been handling this needs some relook because the nature in which the cyber attacks have shown up, the very sophistication, the very nature in which they come together as a consortium and they take you down so that the trail is even more difficult for the forensic experts, shows that they need to now look at recovery, which is the fifth pillar of NIST framework, a little more diligently. There has been a lot of flexibility given in the NIST framework on the recovery pillar, primarily because when it has been designed, it was open to people to really adopt it to their business, their country norms, as well as what SLAs they would like to have. Um, as Harish pointed out, people have implemented BCP and DR, but DR being connected cannot be relied upon completely for recovery from a cyber attack. This really ensures now that one has to, go and look at your most critical data sets and see, can I now protect them in a slightly more sophisticated manner so that I do get my gold copies, clean copies in a particular time frame, which is acceptable to the business. So there is an increasing need to look at recovery. There is an increasing need to look at data security, and more so with the spread in which people are using technology, be it on any cloud, be it on any edge devices. Compute has increased. Data is flowing between on-prem, off-prem, any operating environment. So one needs to look at data security right from the intrinsic stages, which means secure supply chain, secure products, making sure that the handshake of data happens in a proper manner, the standards are adhered to, and the vulnerabilities, the patch management is all taken care of. Now, those are the proactive pieces which every organization needs to do, and they are doing a lot. What they need to do slightly more maybe is test their recoveries, test their backups, because the backups really get get caught first. The target, the threat actor is going to look at which are the most critical backups happening. That data is most sensitive. So they target the backups. They actually come and encrypt it, don't make the access available so that the users can't have an access to the data that they are having, but it's encrypted format. So how do you really bounce back? How do you really make sure that now your backups, which have been taken down, you can recover still? We have seen, in fact, Dell has been involved in many of the cases where we have helped customers come out of it. It has taken some time, and that has been the learnings that we have seen, that recoveries sometimes can take time if they're not followed from a process, people perspective in the right way. And if we really look at technology like critical data sets, there are certain guidelines which have come forth from independent bodies like Gartner, like Sheltered Harbor in the financial sector, which actually say that if you follow these few steps, you can be assured of your clean copy being with you. What are these steps? Typically, if you were to bracket them in 3 stages, they ask you to have isolated networks, isolated air gapped vault area network, where you can keep your gold copy. That should be immutable. And there you need to do fast scanning and intelligently look at malware which has come into your environment. Of course, being in the vault, this will not be affecting your production so much. You have it in the vault, you find your goal, your detect the malware faster, and you retention lock it. So that's the whole solution that really comes in play and helps customers go and retrieve their gold copy, in a certain time frame. This in nutshell actually explains you how customers who are really adopted this journey of securing and making sure that they're cyber resilient, they are able to go back and tell their businesses that, okay, for this much application, I am ready to bring the gold copy back in this much time. You might have to do some amount of work again, but it is a defined period of time. So now you know that in case of a full attack, what is my resiliency posture for this application? Can I come back in, say, a few hours? Can I come back in few minutes? So my RPO gets defined accordingly. So that really takes you to the highest level of protection from a cyber attack perspective, and it completes the NIST framework fully, because now you're doing identification, protection, response, detection, and recovery. All 5 pillars are taken care of. So I think the challenges which have been enumerated by Harish, by Sneha, today all organizations are in the journey to see how they can improve their cyber maturity model. They can test their recoveries. They can stand up and tell the business, look, we are ready to be bouncing back in this time. And in fact, do those cyber drills. So with that, I'd like to hand back to you, Sneha, for the next discussion.
Thank you so much, Ripu. Thanks, Harish and Ripu. You've really set the context and done the level set really well and in a very detailed and with interesting examples from the real world enterprise perspective. Thank you so much for that. And I think with that we can plunge headlong into the discussion. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce my illustrious set of panelists. They are Abhijit Shah, CTO, Nippon Life Insurance. Praveen Sharma, CIO, Union Bank of India, and Manish Gaur, CTO, Patanjali Group. So Praveen, I'd like to start off with you. You're in the banking sector, and the financial and operational implications of a data breach or ransomware lockup are huge in your sector, as it is in any other sector as well. But where are you in the cybersecurity journey, and what are the challenges you are seeing in securing your enterprise against cyber attacks, especially in the new normal?
Uh, Thanks, Sneha, and thanks for the intro. I'm thankful to the ETCIO team for giving this opportunity to be a part of the discussion on the critical topic of cyber resilience. Thanks a lot. So on the topic, on which we are having a discussion and the journey for the bank which has achieved so far. So I will say we are in a better position. But in cyber world, you cannot say that you are 100% protected or you are safe from all the issues. So issues are bound to come, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, or in the past. But how better you are prepared and how quickly you are upgrading yourself is the key for setting and ensuring that on the day-to-day basis or hour-to-hour basis, you are keep on protecting the assets. And in today's world, because the way the digital is moving, it is imperative that unless you are investing in the security as well, you may be far behind. So bank, I will just, I think some of you may be aware, sorry, bank has received the cybersecurity award in consecutive 3 years from IBA. So that is showing the strength in the organization in terms of cyber resilience what has been set up. But that is not the one of the criteria that where we are. But if you see how best you are prepared to handle the incidents is the major requirement. One challenge which generally organizations are facing, and we were also having a discussion on that, is how better or how best you have the education series or the awareness into the staff, because the staff is the key in
Correct.
terms of cyber resilience. So if your employees are well equipped, well trained, and keep on training, because the day to day the new threats are coming, new technology is coming, new solutions are coming to protect that. And we if you are able to catch up that kind of requirement, then that's the best position you are having. So in that regard, bank has taken a lot of initiatives into that area. And one of the key initiative which I can tell you is we are reimbursing all the fees for all the great certifications in terms of awareness to be get created. So that is other than the training. So training is one part, but if you are going for any certification into this area, bank is ready to reimburse you the course fee and the exam fee. So that is enabling us to make our staff much more motivated and keep on upgrading themselves to ensure that the assets are protected. So that's the strategy which bank is following into this.
Right, right. Thanks,
Thanks.
Praveen. Thanks, Praveen. Now, I'd like to move on to Abhijit. Abhijit, you represent the insurance industry. It is very data intensive and data-led
Asset
business.
management.
Sorry?
Asset management.
Yes. So even in the case of asset management, it's a very data-driven industry, very information-centric. So since data is the first-class citizen and a crown jewel for your business, you need to ensure that your security is both infrastructure-centric and also data-centric. So how are you approaching cyber resilience in terms of amping up your cyber resilience maturity, and what are some of the challenges you are facing? Praveen brought up the challenge of awareness, because employees can be the weakest link, the human chain can be the weakest link. So, what, where is your organization placed in terms of cyber resilience maturity, and what are some of the challenges that you see in achieving that sort of cyber nirvana, so to speak?
Yeah, I think first of all, let me give a quick view of the industry. I mean, the asset management industry. It's not really penetrated. It's under-penetrated in India. We will see a lot happening in this industry in next 5 years. And if you really look at the other aspects, specifically with regards to the digitization across industries, I mean, e-commerce share of the total retail sales, it was almost 3 to 5 times higher than the pre-pandemic rate across the developed nations. I mean, you can almost say it's accounting for 45% of the world GDP. 45% of world population and 60% of the world GDP. Even from a data perspective, specifically mentioned, the usage of data, which is anticipated by 2025, is almost 180 zettabytes. I mean, it's huge. And what does this mean? All this means that the surface area for attackers has significantly increased. And I think along with this, I would also like to touch upon the modus operandi of the cyber criminals has become more sophisticated. I think someone touched upon it, but it's about they're using more advanced tools and bots to launch the attacks. And the bots keep on massaging the digital surface almost 24/7. What at least I have been part of banking as well as AMC. What I have seen so far is the bad actors are far more organized than the good actors, and unfortunately, the detect and defense mechanism for most organizations is not advanced enough to handle the next generation threats. So, I mean, if you really look at from our industry and company perspective, it's important for us to have three important components, specifically on resilience perspective. One is isolation of the assets when the event happens. How do you isolate the, if there is an attack, if there is a threat, how do you isolate the impacted asset? Orchestration, basically, how do you orchestrate when the event has happened between the impacted asset and the connected assets? And third important component that we really focus on is rapid recovery. How can we really come up quickly with regards to that? Now, I think there are multiple things. I mean, 5 pillars, everyone is aware of: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. I think when it comes to the 5th pillar of recovery, important is about the data recovery services and cyber insurance. So we as an organization are ensuring that the data protection, data defense mechanism, and data encryption, and at the same time, the recovery services are well aligned. We are also kind of ensured that the right cyber insurance is in place. I think these are all the components that will come after an event has happened. But importantly, I think all employees should know how to identify, detect malware, phishing threats, and they should understand the result of a data breach. I think awareness across the organization is really important, because it's not that there is one security team and then they are going to protect the entire organization. One
It's a
phishing mail,
business risk.
one phishing mail goes to the entire organization, and anyone in the organization that's click on the link, and then you're gone. The kind of malware gets into your organization and can go everywhere. So I think identifying your own crown jewels and critical capabilities. I think also peer learning and ongoing education that we need to do. I think, as I said earlier, there is a lot of collaboration between the bad actors. It's important for us between the finance industry entities, the regulators. There should be some consortium, and I think the regulators, the RBI, SEBI, they have already started building the infrastructure to ensure that the entities in these industries are tied together and collaborating. Adapting more quickly to the broader social and political climate. I think that's really very important. How do we kind of create an ecosystem where we are able to respond quickly? And more importantly, I think the way fintechs are kind of growing, it's important to create right partnerships with peers, competitors, and public entities. So in a nutshell, if you really look at it, changing your approach so that we are not only securing the business, but enabling the business through security. I think resilience, so it's not that cyber security has kind of change its track and now it's looking at cyber resilience. It has to be both. An organization needs both. I mean, cybersecurity is a fundamental building block, and on top of it, how quickly we respond to an
Proactively.
event. I think that that's really going to be very critical. So
Correct.
I think that that's how we are looking at it. And I will touch upon the threat monitoring thing that we have implemented. Maybe in the next kind of question that you might have, I might like to touch upon that topic as well.
Mhm. Right, right. Thank you so much, Abhijit. You really encapsulated it well and spoke about the industry challenges, the challenges pertaining to your organization, how you are looking at it, what is the kind of broad, you also gave us a broad brush stroke of the strategy that you would have within your organization for this. I'd like to move on um,
So
to
yeah, just to add to it, right, what Abhijit just added, like he touched upon a few points, like the data surface, right,
Mhm.
that's increasing, the growth we are seeing in the data, right. I think so. The attack surface is, as the data surface grows, the attack surface grows, right. It's all in parallel, right. The endpoints are all getting like they're all looking at endpoints, how they can get into all this. Now, like just to add to it, right, what Ripu was talking about it, right, and then there's something called as what Abhijit spoke about, rapid recovery, right? So automation plays a key role in there, right? That how you can go ahead and automate this whole instances. Like example now, with those regulatory coming in and saying, okay, hey, if I have a disaster, for the BFSI, they have to recover within 15 minutes RTO, RPO. So those are very stringent now. We're going to see something similar coming into even in case of a cyber incident, right? Because let's say I always give this classic example. You're sitting in a hospital. If the hospital there's a patient, it's not important that how you're going to pay the money. It's important to get the patient's record, right? That's the critical data for the hospital. So in case of a cyber incident, how do I go ahead and recover that patient's record? That's the minimum for me to run my business, right? It's the rest of it can go later. So that's the brand value what gets created about it. So I think that's very important that identifying key data and hey, sorry Praveen, go ahead.
No, no, you complete. After that, I will come.
So yeah, I think that's so critical of it, right? That this whole automation in this entire modules, how you can bring back post an incident, how you can bring back that entire set of key applications, key data, right? Which would be approximately like a 20% of an organization's key applications. We can't say that 100% of my applications are critical.
right.
There are ways you can recover it, but the 20% is something which you want in next 1 hour or 2 hours post a cyber incident. And as Ripu was saying that it has to be a clean copy so that I can quickly recover from it without even worrying about any malware being part of it. So I think those are some key points which even Abhijit and Mr. Praveen touched upon. Hey, over to you, Mr. Praveen. Sorry.
So no, no, thanks. Actually, see what I was just trying to add, what on the discussion. See, once the cyber incident comes, or hit to you, it is one the technology team has to take care and revert back to the originals. But in addition to that, the kind of regulation which is coming now, so you need to report in a quick time, as well as reporting and then the media handling. These are two very important things, because if somewhere things goes wrong a little bit, then it has a more complexity involved. So unnecessarily your the client base or the customer base, it will be get shaken, and which will have a long lasting effect, even though you will come back to the same situation, but then all questions will be raised. So that is going to that is also a very critical role to play while handling the incident of this kind.
Agree, Mr.
If
Praveen.
I can just take just a minute, Mr. Praveen, you
Sure.
just brought out the most current and the hottest thing which is happening, the current certain directions which you are referring, I believe, right, of reporting within 6 hours, if I can quote that. And also not just that, they are also very strict about certain guidelines in terms of hardening levels in the ICT infrastructure that you're having. I think the broader picture now is that, are the organizations suddenly going to take all this and be ready to do it? And you rightly pointed out, there could be a scenario that you can recover from that incident in a particular time frame and be absolutely clean, in terms of, yes, you've bounced back. uh, then this particular thing can be more dangerous, because you would invite so much of attention on yourself and handling the media and all. You rightly brought out a very important piece. And I think today, the I was actually one of the interactions we were having the other day. about this topic. And there are many organizations who feel that, bringing such guidelines are important. They have been there in many countries. In fact, in Japan, it is no time. We have to report it within the first hour itself, an incident. Now, if we have to jump towards that highest level of, transparency, you can call, or reporting, and definitely certain has been taking all the incidents and collecting it and giving guidance. But now it is coming that you have to raise your hand and say, look, I have been under breach. So as an organization, am I equipped today from a technology process, people point of view, awareness point of view? That I'm happy to hear that many organizations say that yes, they are. But when it comes to actually being 100%, then there are gaps which can come in. So today, if you see, this is an important board level topic where it is guiding the new level of, say, not just investments, but how do I make sure that cyber resiliency can take me into the next level of, a business driver that we have. I have been looking at digitizing. I've been looking at rolling out applications seamlessly, mobile services, for example. The UPI networks are booming in India in the last 1 year. So there's a digital explosion virtually. In this era of digital explosion, am I having the right infrastructure to make sure that I can adhere to these demands of both my customers and my regulators? So that is actually the elephant in the room, really speaking, that I have to now report. I have to be ready for recovery. I have to have my people fully aware. And by the way, the demand is ever increasing. I cannot say this data is not very critical. If you really go and ask your system is let me just collect 20%, everybody raises their hands. In fact, we did a cyber assessment, and finally the CIO said, look, let me just start with, if I go asking every application, they will say everything is important. But let me take my judgment and just, secure the binaries, secure the Active Directory, which is my lifeline, right? So you just need to prioritize and start small. If you start small, you will know faster, what are the things that you need to put in place. And obviously nobody's going to give you a big budget. So you got to show some quick wins. You got to show some, it's a journey. You have to be on the continuum. You've got to learn and learn fast. So I think you brought out a great point, sir. I mean, really, that's the call of the hour, literally, for all organizations.
Yeah, that's actually right. See, the organization has to be more equipped to have the reporting structure complied. And the 6 hours is the time window which has been given. But I really don't know whether you are aware of it or not. Already existing guidelines are there for 4 hours. That is from Reserve Bank. So from the banking perspective, we are there.
You already, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is there. Yeah, thanks actually. Yeah, over to Sneha, to you.
Manish, now, since as a manufacturing company, your supply chain, IT/OT, security of the IT/OT environment is equally critical. So, how are you approaching cyber resilience? Have you put in place a broad a framework to achieve this? And what are some of the steps that you plan to take over the next couple of months to increase your cyber resiliency posture? Manish?
No, Sneha, we don't
He's
have
not.
Manish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Oh,
joined. I think
he's
He got
he joined.
disconnected or something. Yeah.
okay, sure. So then I'd like to move back to Abhijit. So Abhijit, in your previous response, you were talking about some of the steps that you've taken in this direction. Could you walk us through how you've done a tabletop or a business continuity exercise to recover from cybersecurity incidents, and what is the plan there?
So I think this is a very standard procedure. I mean, the red top team kind of comes. We have a mock drill happening. There are DR drills that happens on a timely basis. I think these are all what I would say is nuts and bolts, which happen on a regular cadence basis. But I think over and above this, I would like to touch upon some important points, because the way the digital disruption has happened, and the way the surface area has kind of gone extremely high. I think it's important to have proactive threat hunting or threat monitoring capability. I mean, so instead of just reacting to incidents when they happen, your security operations center can move to more proactive cyber defense model by using say security orchestration, automation, and response platforms. Predominantly, there are platforms which have come up which are using a big data and data driven threat monitoring. So one is identifying the entire network setup that you have and identifying the traffic patterns between the nodes in your network and trying to establish a benchmark of these patterns. So you know exactly on Tuesday at between 10 to 11, node A will be talking to node B. And this is a very standard protocol. But if node A is talking to node C in that duration, which is not a standard protocol, it's detected as an anomaly, which is going against the baseline that you have established. And I think this is the way most of the advanced organizations will take a look with regards to how they want to really modernize their threat monitoring capabilities with regards to having data at their core, the historical data at their core, and then building the baselines based on that data, and then kind of creating the monitoring mechanism which will keep on monitoring the real-time traffic vis-a-vis what is the baseline. I think this is going to be a most critical thing. We have, in fact, in one of my stint in the bank, this is what we had gone ahead and implemented. And I think it really makes a lot of sense because it really gives you, so now it's not going to just restrict to the historical data of the company, but it's also going to kind of take into account the various partners because the ecosystem is kind of very different now. I mean, in the olden days, you just had one bank or one financial institution doing its business. But today, we have the identity provider, we have the regulator, we have some fintech provider, we have the payment partner. So there are 4 to 5 entities across which the entire business transaction cuts. Now, in this scenario, you will need to have the data understanding of all the entities to build the baseline pattern. So it's going to be more complex. But I think the moment we evolve ourselves to deal with this complexity, I think we will be at least taking some steps ahead of the criminals and identifying some things even before they occur.
Right, right. Now, Praveen, I'd like to take this thread to you. Abhijit spoke about real-time monitoring capabilities that can span across detection, response, forensics through, and there are a lot of security vendors who try to do this through automation, analytics, ML. Do you see this improving the advanced threat detection, investigation, and response capabilities of organizations?
Thanks. The point which Abhijit has mentioned about the threat intel. In today's environment, in the general scenario, if you see the cyber issues does not crop up on the day one or the on the 0 day. It's a general phenomena, that from 45 days to 90 days
Silent
or little
attacks.
more. So they will be keep on capturing the data and understanding your environment because generally organizations has made their systems more complex. Their networks are more complex. More segmentation has been done. Now application segmentations are being done on the cloud infrastructure. Already, our hardware software has been, the modernization has been done. So a lot of controls has been put in place, but that is becoming only the making the life more complex, more difficult for the people to really understand the setup and try to take the advantage of the threats there. If that is there and somebody is having a silently sitting in your network to understand, the threat intel is going to give you larger inputs. And unless you have that kind of solution and the setup ready, maybe every 15 day, every 10 day, or a month's time, you are able to really evaluate all the critical logs of the system. You may not be able to really catch. And the thing which is coming from the real time monitoring and real time protection See, monitoring is definitely required, but in a scenario where you have to complete the transaction in 5 seconds to 7 seconds or the 10 seconds time, the protection you may not be able to do, because if you go for the protection kind of thing, then the delay will be there and the transaction decline will come. So there is a balance required, and especially when I'm talking about the larger volume like UPI. See, UPI volumes, we are touching now the second best bank in the industry, and with a technical decline in the range of 0.5 to 0.6. So if that kind of ratio you have to maintain, which is another requirement from the coming from the enforcements, that yes, this is something which you need to maintain. Now with that and keeping the cyber issues and the protection of the assets, there is very little chance for you to have the protection enabled. If you enable the protection, then there is a fair chance for the
Performance
reduction and the
deterioration.
declines. So keeping the balance in intact, you need to have the real-time monitoring with the threat intel, and a lot of inputs coming from the all such organizations who are evaluating and who are monitoring the across the globe, because that is going to help you. Otherwise, it is going to be very difficult, because new threats are coming day by day. And I know one more thing I just want to add. See, if your basics are right, which we all talk, if you are maintaining your basics, what the definition has been given to protect you, I think it's not that easy for anybody to breach into that. But yes, it's very difficult to keep your basics always right, because somewhere something will be get missed out by some of your employee, like which we were talking about, that if 100 mails has come and it has gone to the 100 employees, we really don't know. If somebody has clicked, then whatever you have done the best, it is gone.
Correct. And these days,
So
the senior management is specifically targeted through, whale surfing attacks and things like that, especially during the pandemic. So even
yes,
the senior management could be a
correct,
source of
correct.
threat.
So what we are also doing, we are doing the tabletop exercise specifically for the senior management and the top management. So we segregated out and then mix some of the people. We even try for the board members. So that kind of setup which we create, so that is helping us into making more system resilient. But
Correct.
yes, that's a journey, and we need to keep on moving.
Correct. Now, Harish and Ripu, thank you so much, Praveen. You've raised a very valid point, and Harish and Ripu, Praveen raised this point about the trade-off between achieving a notched up level of security and performance and delivery of the services in a proper way to customers. So how do you see this in the industry? How can organizations strike a balance? What are your industry observations as practitioners in this space?
Sneha, I have only 3 minutes, and after 3 minutes, I will log off.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you
So
so
maybe
much, Praveen, but for joining. I'm glad, despite your tight schedule, you still managed to make it and make it so insightful and interactive by raising some of these very interesting and very relevant points. Thank
right.
you so much,
Thanks a
and you have
lot,
a
and
safe
I'm
flight.
sorry I'm not able to connect till last. I'm
No,
thankful
I
to.
think that's fine, Mr.
Perfectly
Pradeep.
fine.
It will be good to connect and also get some insights from you. Well, just while you have 3 minutes, before I go to your questions, Neha, I just wanted to talk about what the common point, what Mr. Abhijit as well as Mr. Praveen spoke about threat hunting and monitoring, and that's one of the practice, as you were saying, right? What are the industry saying, that how do you have those threat hunting and monitoring basically in your set of data to build that confidence, right? That okay, hey, I'm secure. I think, and this is where, right, the standards of the cyber resiliency have to come into picture, right? And we have seen this in like with the US, like with the Sheltered Harbor, which is one of the financial organizations who helps the financial organizations to improve and all that stuff. They have certified the solutions, what we will definitely talk about, right? Or Mr. Praveen and Abhijit will connect on this as well. Me and Ripu will connect with you on that, right? And apart from that, the NIST framework. So you have to build solutions which are around the NIST framework, right? Where we talk about detect, respond, anticipate. Those kind of the modules you have to build in your solutions, right? And then the threat hunting and monitoring. So basically, what we, me and Jipu have in common is basically the three I's, which is basically like how do you isolate the air gap, right? So that you have a right copy, right? And then how you go ahead and create an immutable copy, which means, nobody can damage it. So like that's my golden image. It's rightly protected. I want that it has to be protected as well, right? So these are some of the industry standards which you will hear in many places, but yeah, not all organizations are able to cope up with many other insights. And then the intelligence of it, right? As we were talking, how do you go ahead and see the intelligence where it can scan the copy and say, hey, it's a good copy, or have I seen some differences in it, right? So that's the three I's, what we call about it. And then the overall automation, right? So that, hey, the automation which helps you to not have a manual intervention here, you can recover within a specific time of RTO RPOs. Like I still remember that RTO RPOs used to be in DR, and then in backup it used to be like 24 hours and all. But no, with this kind of a cyber incidents, you can meet right set of RTOs, RPOs, and you could come up with a solution. So maybe Ripu, you want to add to something what I highlighted, or something more?
Yeah, you touched upon the key aspects, Harish, and I just want to add today, people find it, implementing these, identifying the top critical applications, but it is just to get started, and you have been doing protection, in many ways. You've been protecting data, keeping it onto media, recovering it from there, showing recovery. But today's world, your recoveries are challenged literally. The data may be in your premise, the data could be in your backup storage, but your access to it could be blocked because your master server is down, or your copy which you had kept at the PCP site is not fully in sync. So you have to rebuild everything, rebuild the indexes, which can take time. All backup softwares, they do take time to rebuild the indexes, and that rebuild time can be very, very long. Um, so to secure yourself, you need to have a vault, which is the air gapped, created cyber vault, where you will be having these functionalities, the three I's in play. It is giving you the additional, you will require some resources, but it gives you that additional guarantee that today, even if I'm down, I will be down by up to that last gold copy that I had in my vault. So you will be keeping 14, 15 copies over there, daily basis, taking there, manually checking everything. But yeah, so the orchestration level piece, once it comes in, it is becoming another level of, you can have a trouble ticketing system, the way you have implemented it with a self-service. It just now starts monitoring all the backups that you had, and now going to be with that assurance that, look, your gold copy could be a few hours old, but you can definitely also be ready to actually tell your system that, look, I've detected something. So before the threat actors really take you down, before they really surface, you have actually found them. So your early detection is also being taken care of. So it's just not recovery. You're also detecting the malware before they really come and surface. They could be dwelling in your environment for a long period of time, sensing what is most critical, not really erupting, but just sitting over there. So this is a good way to detect early, as well as be proactively, be ready for what kind of data is coming. And by the way, these scanning engines, the heuristics that we check, exactly was mentioning, what Mr. Praveen was talking about, that can we get the intelligence which we are seeing from the global landscape in the financial industry, because there is a trend that they see, and we can know. For example, this was the way we detected. This is the way the recovery happened in a particular place.
So
That common
threat
practice,
intelligence in that
yes,
case.
it can be shared across, and then organizations between countries can also share and be better prepared. And therefore, a lot of alliances which are happening at geopolitical level on the cyberspace are taking increasing significance. We were in fact talking to senior dignitaries in the PMO office as well about this, and there's a lot of work happening to bring together this common intelligence.
Right, right. Thank you, Ripu. You raised a very valid point. I'd like to take it to Abhijit now. Security threats could have a very dynamo effect, especially in the BFSI sector. And you mentioned in your previous, I think in your first response, that the miscreants, the cyber criminals, are far more organized and have a higher level of collaboration than the organizations, the enterprises themselves. Do you think a better industry level collaboration could help solve the problem or bring some sort of a threat intelligence and improve the post help all organizations improve the posture?
Absolutely. I think you just hit the nail on the head, because the way the cyber criminals are collaborated, I think it's extremely intense. I mean, it's a kind of a totally planned, collaborated effort. I mean, just look at one of the incident that happened with one of the banks, and the malware was sitting on their ATM. Just look at the kind of collaboration that was there. There were people who were uh, creating the duplicate ATM cards. There were money mules who were spread across globally. There were people who were insiders in the bank, and then there were actors who were monitoring from outside the entire of these transactions. There are 4 or 5 entities who have collaborated together to kind of ensure that the malware was sitting on the ATM switch of the bank, and whoever was the money mules who were having the duplicate uh, cards of the bank, they were just going to some ATM centers and doing some transactions. The transactions was hitting that ATM switch, and the malware was not letting that request go into their core system. It was auto approving that request,
Mm-hmm.
and the money was getting dispensed on that ATM. So look at the way this particular was synchronized.
Correct.
I think the way they have done the crimes are kind of amazing in a way, and the way the individual entities in the finance industry specifically, I think we have not yet seen that level of collaboration. I think it's high time that all, or rather, the key players, even the key players, come together to at least start sharing the threat intelligence. So, to an extent, I think that has started happening, where multiple entities have started sharing their threats with the regulators, and then regulators come back to us saying that, okay, these are some things that we have seen, and this is what we are sharing across. But I think this is just the first step, I would say. I think we have to go more, at least 10 notches above what we are doing right now, to kind of intensify the kind of collaboration between the entities, and then share the right data. Of course, we all know the data is totally private and confidential with regards to their business, and not all of that can be shared. And that is where the good actors lag in sharing the data. They have something to lose, while
Mm-hmm.
the bad actors have nothing to lose. they
Correct.
they can be failing 100 times, and they can be going through and making themselves successful only once.
Once,
But
and
on
you
the
all have
other
to
side, we have to be passing all the 100 times.
mm,
So that's the difference. And of
right.
course, I think we have to be more collaborative. I think in the coming days, I'm sure we will see a lot of collaboration between the entities.
Mhm. True. Now, Harish and Ripu, how do you see collaboration in the industry? Do you think there is still a sort of stigma attached to it because of this sector is under so much media glare, and there is a loss of, brand name in this, and there's it could create an identity crisis, also lose the trust of customers. Do you think some of these factors come into play when it comes to collaborating better within the industry?
Yeah, I think it does, right? So I think the brand is something which is the most key part of it, right? Nobody wants to uh,
Tarnish their
manage
image
their brand.
before
Right?
the
That,
customer.
that's a play. Now we have seen that, right, with the whole digitalization, the social media. Oh, it's like it just takes you seconds, right? I think what we have seen with Coke, with that small Ronaldo thing, not yeah, Ronaldo, or I don't
Yes,
know the name of that football player. So I think it's all about brand, I would say. So yeah, the collaboration in industry is very key. And I think Sneha, I think this is the kind of sessions where we look at the not just like as an individual company, but the industry expertise, right, where we talk about it and get feedback. So yeah, I agree. Collaboration in industry is very important to build a matured solution, go with a common goal, right? And it's up to the individuals. When I say individuals, I mean the organizations, of how they would take track of it. But it's very important for organizations to come together and build certain set of tracks, guidelines, plans, processes which would help overall organization, big, small, doesn't matter, right? They're all part of the industry. So I think it's very key.
correct. Okay. Now, Abhijit, what are your expectations from service providers in this space? How do you think they could help you while you can provide the real world perspective to them, but what are some of the ways in which you expect them to provide their technology expertise and intelligence in the space to help you stay ahead of the game
No, I
with
think
cyber resilience?
that's really important for us to ensure that we use the latest tools and technologies to kind of ensure we are ahead of curve and always a couple of notches above the way the criminals think. Um, I think more use of artificial intelligence and ML to build the models that are in fact predicting. Uh, what attacks might happen in the future. I mean, there can be some predictive models that can be built based on what historical data various entities might have. Uh, Based on these predictive models, I think there can be a lot of self-healing mechanisms that can be adopted, because I think majority of the time there is a manual effort that goes in. The intervention is required from the people, the resources in the organization to understand what has gone wrong, to kind of create or to rather extract the data for forensics. If we are in a position to have some mechanism to kind of get to a level of self-aware systems, and the next step basically to a self-healing kind of system where we will be in a position to do some auto correction based on the intelligence developed by these models. I think that is what uh, I'm looking out for, and certainly will explore more with the service providers.
Right. Harish and Ripu, what have you been hearing from your enterprise customers on what their expectations are, or what is it that they need to do amongst themselves to, apart from collaboration and the basic hygiene factors, what is it that they need to do better to achieve a high level of cyber resilience?
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, Ripu, go ahead. I would just say
No,
that,
no. Sorry. Go ahead, Harish.
and I would just say what Ripu added to it right earlier, the identifying your key assets. I think that's very important for organizations to start with it, right? I think versus saying like 100% of my landscape, yes, 100% is important, but what are the most critical part of it? So that is very important exercise which we all need to do from, and what are the open endpoints, like, the landscape, what is the perimeter like? And that's where, there are so many security gaps, like, okay, what's our perimeter, what's my landscape, what IPs are internet exposed, what IPs are internal, right? There's a lot to do there, right? And then knowing the right sort of application, the application stack as well, right from the underlying infra to application to middle layer. So knowing those key assets of it is very key, and this is what, I think that's very required maturity in the organization as well, that should be there, right? I know there are organizations who would say they are very good with it, but I've seen some gaps as well, and I think Abhijit, coming from the asset management, he can he can add to it. But having seen along, I've seen that there's still a lot to improve, lot to learn, I would say. I'm not saying, yep, there's a lot to learn, a lot to improve in this space. And over to you, Ripu. I think you were chiming in.
Yeah. Firstly, collaboration, and that's how Sheltered Harbor started. 30 financial institutions came together. They decided it's a common problem. It's a common goal. I think the best way that all organizations can fight this menace is that, and it can be one very good, a guiding force for all to come together. If there's a vertical which is like a healthcare, um, you know, while they are competing with each other on many fronts, right, and the businesses, this is a common goal that they have to come together and fight this menace which is in their vertical. So it's a kind of bringing them together, and more importantly, like Abhijit mentioned, self-healing, very good point. And I believe that is one thing which will really be what we see from technology obsolescence also. Self-healing infrastructure is exactly that. You can have older systems and older set of infrastructure keeping data, and you have a new type of infrastructure, and once you bring in the new one, the system automatically knows how to move the data intelligently into the new infrastructure and discard the old. So you can actually tell and keep a system forever. You can say my data is going to be archived forever, and that's how systems were designed. Self-healing technology, and it used to be called a RAIN architecture, redundant array of independent nodes. So you can keep on bringing new technology, and the old one gets. So in a similar manner, if you reach a level where if I do not have to redo even that one day or even in less than one day, maybe 6 hours of work, I've detected something fast. I got my gold copy, but I still have to apply some work to be most current. Now I can build a system, and then that will require that much amount of work or infrastructure or resources to build it. Now, would you be able to afford that for all types of data that you're keeping? Not really. You would be judicious. You would say, hi, I don't have to have that high level of resiliency built in for this type of data. I can afford to keep it for a certain lesser time and rebuild it maybe. So there are ways in which organizations have to just look at top 10, top 25 applications. What are my SLAs today? Can I afford to have this much resiliency? What are my detection objectives against it? What are my cyber recovery objective against them? And then define it. Against them, technology players, solution players, like many of us, we will be, helping them, you know, reach those levels. And of course, it comes with people, processes all being in the place. And therefore, and coming together, intelligence has to be shared so that we are current. And if we are together, this is definitely a place where we can negate them. We can definitely minimize the impact. So that's our approach, and it has worked very well in places where they have taken these approaches. Um, People have come out of cyber attacks. They have come out more resilient. They have adopted these solutions, and now they are able to monitor things proactively. So it's a step in the positive direction.
Thank you so much, Ripu. I think in the limited time that we had, we tried to touch upon a lot of issues, starting from why organizations need to be prepared for cyber resiliency. What are the ways in which digital is, making the attack surface wider and more varied? Why they need to identify their crown jewels and protect them better. The impact it can have on the primary information and backup. Also, we spoke about collaboration, and all of this goes on to establish that there's a need for organizations to approach cyber resiliency not just with an increased urgency but also with an unwavering commitment. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Harish to wrap up today's session.
Great. No, I think thanks, Neha, and thanks Ripu, Abhijit again for chipping in and giving those insights and adding to it, right? So Mr. Abhijit, I think what I would like to talk, like just close the session that yes, these, as we all agree that cyber recovery is a key element which organizations should look at, right? As we spoke about those tabletop exercise which are being done from a disaster perspective, likewise from a cyber incident perspective, organizations have to spend time and energy in looking at it, right? This is all starts with the identifying the key assets, key applications, the drill exercise at how we will recover from the set of data we have, and are we compliant with the set of guidelines? Do we meet certain set of maturity in the industry? Do we meet certain set of maturity from the other NIST framework we have, right? So combining that, we together, Dell and Kindle, have developed a solution which I think covers all of those aspects, right? Right from the three I's, which I just said earlier, to automation track of it, and giving the organizations that entire solution to go ahead and recover in case of cyber incident, right? And as Ripu was adding to it, it's not just that you got to look at your 100%, you got to start small and then grow onto it, right? But I think this is a very key element which Mr. Abhijit, you also added, the data surface, right? The data surface is large, the entry points are large as well. So I think how do we go ahead and see that we protect ourselves from such kind of incidents? I think this is a very key step in terms of a cyber resiliency, where we are taking a lot of efforts in the security, but there's nothing on the anticipate and recover part of it. We leave it to the infra, but the infra is never in collaborations with the security organization. So that's how this whole efforts of cyber recovery is very key for all the organizations and top executives to look at. I think I'd like to conclude with that, Sneha.
Thank you so much, Harish. Thanks, Ripu, and thanks a lot, Abhijit, and also Praveen, who attended a part of this session. Thanks once again, gentlemen, for bringing your industry perspectives and insights to this conversation and making it so relevant and also so rooted in reality. Thank you once again.